Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Angel Ito. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. Thanks for sharing a part of your Easter Sunday with us. On the show tonight, Chicago's most storied arts institutions have elevated Black leaders to the home in the last year. We'll talk to some of them about how the Chicago art scene is planning its 2021 comeback. And on the anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, we visit the Elmhurst Art Museum to check out their exhibit on fair housing that features some rare photos of the civil rights leader.
When he would make a banquet, they say, oh, he's out in Africa recruiting ball players and things like that.
And with an NCAA basketball champion being crowned tomorrow night, we remember Loyola's 1963 championship team and the adversity it faced on the way to a national title. First off tonight, Chicago's arts organizations have always been enriched and influenced by the work of Black artists and performers, though they have not always been inclusive of Black voices. And Black leadership in those organizations have historically been even more rare. But amid the turbulence of the last year, a wave of new Black leaders has arrived in Chicago's arts community. Now they are tasked with navigating some of the city's best-known institutions through incredibly challenging times for the arts. Joining us are John Carr, executive producer at the Second City Comedy Theater, Jackie Williams, executive director of the African American Arts Alliance of Chicago, and Linda Denise Fisher-Harrell, artistic director of Hubbard Street Dance Chicago. Thank you all so much for joining us. Let's get right into it. Linda Denise, my first question is for you. Can you give us a snapshot of how Hubbard Street has kind of weathered the past year of the pandemic and how you plan to kind of bring forth some change?
Well, during the pandemic, I'm very proud of the Hubbard Street Dance Chicago organization because they were able to pivot on a dime. And the actual night of the shutdown, they started making work backstage. And so we've been presenting a lot of virtual films. We're actually just finished presenting our third virtual film, and we have 2 more to go this season. Mm-hmm. So we're very anxious to get back into the theaters once they are open or deemed open, and to start presenting new work, new artistic voices choreographically, as well as bringing some new dancers to the stage as well.
Thank you so much, and that leads me to my next question with John Carr. I know that you're new to your position, but can you tell me a little bit about how you plan to bring the audience back to the theaters with being virtual for so long?
Yeah, I think that we're in a place where people are just excited to get out of the house. I think one of the big things is making sure that we have a safe place, that we're following all the state and city requirements, recommendations, but then just having fun. And I think people are ready to have fun. So opening those doors and creating a space for them to do it, I genuinely believe that people will be flocking to that.
And that brings me to my next question, looking at all 3 of you and new prominent arts positions. Jackie, I would like to ask what you think that this new leadership in the Black arts community means for art throughout the city and beyond.
Oh, I think it's exciting to see what's happening across the arts organizations throughout Chicago. And I think it's a real awareness and recognition of the wonderful work that many of the African American arts organizations have been doing historically. So I think that recognition, that awareness, and also the fact that maybe some are recognizing the systemic racism that may have existed in their organizations, in their boards, and how they've selected their leaderships and how they've maybe been very siloed in their thinking or their selection process, and how it is now a more horizontal, or can be a more horizontal process for bringing in leadership for organizations. So it's a beautiful thing, and I think we are at a wonderful time, a wonderful point in our time for arts organizations here in Chicago.
And now, John, I know that the former CEO of Second City left due to accusations of institutional racism. Could you also touch on why a prominent leadership within the arts community, specifically from Black leaders such as yourself, is important?
Well, I think it's absolutely important because ultimately the art should reflect the community and the world itself. And so, by having prominent people in these places, we really get an opportunity to do some great things and really get a chance to make sure that our voices are heard and that we can reflect the world that we live in a more effective way. Because, as more people come into these leadership roles, we can really reflect our community and have some unique and different voices being heard.
Now, Linda Denise, going to you as the first woman and person of color to hold your position with Hubbard Street, can we just talk about how you kind of plan to evoke some of those changes to be more reflective of the communities that you all will be representing with Hubbard Street?
Absolutely. So I think diversity and representation matters. So just the fact that I am the head of this organization, I think will draw in a more diverse body of audiences, choreographers, as well as dancers. And so that's exactly what I intend to do, is broaden our audience base and attract people who may not have wanted to see a Hubbard Street Dance Chicago concert in the past. Maybe my leadership will bring them to the theater, and maybe I will attract some new bodies to the stage, as well as some new choreographers who may not have had the opportunity to choreograph on the company. And I want to give them that opportunity.
Now, John, I would like to ask what you think this means for Black comedians when we haven't seen a lot of Black and brown faces in Second City. So how do you plan to reemerge some of those new and upcoming artists?
Absolutely. I think it goes to our plans to diversify not only our audience and our cast, but our programming. I think you have to give a reason for diverse audiences to come to your theater in the first place. And so for us, I think that's one of the exciting things, is it gives us a chance to kind of play outside the bubble that we normally do to try to create some new opportunities for our performers of color to put them on those stages, and so that our audience will get to see that, our audience will be able to reflect that, and hopefully we'll find some folks that will be in those audience that'll say, that person looks like me, maybe I should try this out, and start seeing a change in the community overall in comedy. And that's kind of the things that really get me excited about the future.
Absolutely. And closing it out with you, Jackie, can you tell me a little bit about how the organizations you're working with, the work that you're doing to just continue to be COVID safe as we think about opening our doors to limited numbers or maybe doing things virtually?
Absolutely. Well, the Alliance is made for helping organizations build capacity, and including in that is helping them to create safe reopening, re-engagement plans. There's probably not going to be a one-size-fit-all reopening plan for every organization and every arts institution. So the Alliance will work with them to create those reopening plans so they can open safely, slowly for some of them, and have real registration protocols, everything in place so everyone feels safe. The public feels safe returning to institutions, as well as staff feels safe when they are opening up the doors to the public. So that is the whole goal, the entire goal, to make sure that our arts organizations are prepared to receive the public in the coming weeks, months, for many of them.
Well, thank you all so much. Our thanks to John Carr, Jackie Williams, and Linda Denise Harris-Farrell for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, tomorrow night in Indianapolis, an NCAA basketball champion will be crowned. A couple of weeks ago, the Loyola Ramblers shocked the college basketball world, beating the top-seeded University of Illinois, only to lose last weekend in the Sweet 16. Now, back in 1963, Loyola won the NCAA championship, but that tournament run was about much more than basketball. On the 40th anniversary of that championship, Chicago Tonight told their inspiring story. Here's another look with Bob Surratt.
Larry eyes it, shoots it, it is off, no good, and Leslie Hunter has got it. To Ron Miller, they got a fast break down to Harkness. He jumps, he shoots, he scores! He scores!
Announcer Red Rush on WCFL Radio had just witnessed one of the greatest comebacks in NCAA championship history.
He tied it! He tied it!
Chicago's Loyola Ramblers had turned a 15-point second-half deficit into a tie ball game. Now they faced the adversity of overtime. But this team had been facing adversity for the past 2 years, both on and off the court. Early 1960s America, the civil rights struggle was in full swing. In the segregated South, African Americans weren't allowed to play sports at most major colleges, even if they could gain admission. Things were only slightly better for black athletes in the North.
It was an unwritten rule that the most you should have is 2, and they were really pushing that might be too much.
In 1961, Loyola coach George Ireland was tired of mediocrity. He had coached the Ramblers for 10 years to moderate success, but a .500 record didn't suit the ambitious coach. He wanted to win big.
If he won 15 games and lost 10, I think Loyola would be happy with George Ireland. But George Ireland wanted to win games for George Ireland.
So George Ireland was ready to recruit America's best players, and he was ready to put them on the floor no matter what their race. He was also ready for the critics.
He was just ridiculed, and sometimes it was harsh, and other times it was in a joking manner, but harsh. And when he would make a banquet, they said, oh, he's out in Africa recruiting ball players and things like that.
He was a tireless worker. He knew where he wanted to go. He knew how to drive men.
The team Ireland put together included a starting lineup of 4 African Americans: Leslie Hunter and Vic Rouse from Nashville, Ron Miller and Jerry Harkness from the Bronx, plus John Egan from Southside St. Rita High School. The infusion of new talent transformed Loyola basketball almost overnight. The team went 23-4 in the 1961-62 season, making the Final Four in the NIT tournament. But success on the court came despite the persistent racism that surrounded the team.
It was chants. Our team is red hot, your team is all black.
The students, it was primarily students in the stands, or young people, I should say, in the stands, who would throw coins out in the court, who would hurl paper bags, just garbage at us when we were in the huddle.
I wondered why they hated me so, and they didn't even know me.
Coming into the 1962-63 season, expectations were high for the Ramblers. They sat near the top of the college basketball rankings all year and ran off a long winning streak to start the season.
We felt that we, without a doubt, was one of the best teams in the nation. There was no doubt about that.
The team received a bid to the NCAA tournament. In their second game, the Ramblers were scheduled to play the Mississippi State Maroons, champions of the Southeast Conference. But before the all-white Maroons could play the game in East Lansing, Michigan, the team had to get past the governor of Mississippi, as well as a court injunction that barred play in integrated competition. The team devised an elaborate plan to escape Mississippi before being served with the injunction. While the Mississippi State players were sneaking across state lines, the Loyola team was receiving threats as well.
We got letters from the Ku Klux Klan. Tournament time, and the Mississippi State came. We got a couple that was really, really horrendous and kind of nerve-wracking. And they were threatening your life then. And we got calls not only from the Ku Klux Klan, but we got it from the black community that we bet not lose.
In the end, Mississippi State made it to the game in East Lansing. By game time, the enormity of the situation finally hit Loyola star Jerry Harkness.
Game time comes, and I go out to shake hands with the captain of Mississippi State, and I could not believe the number of bulbs and lights that went on. Boom, boom, pop, 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 boom, 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 all over the place. And then I realized This is more than a game. This is history. This is much more than a game.
The game itself was played without incident. Loyola won, 61-51. The Ramblers easily dispatched Big Ten champ and downstate rival Illinois in the next game, then beat highly regarded Duke to make it to the championship final against the Cincinnati Bearcats. Even with their stellar record and convincing tournament wins, the Ramblers were still a considerable underdog in the finals in Louisville, Kentucky. For more than 25 minutes, the Ramblers played badly, especially star Jerry Harkness.
Harkness, the star, the All-American, was 0 for the game. He couldn't throw the ball in Lake Michigan.
The worst 30 minutes I've ever played in my life. And I think the national thing got on me because I was thinking of Harlem with my mom. I started thinking of all the guys I grew up in the projects with, and they were kind of watching the TV. They hadn't, because at that time, college basketball wasn't like it is now. This was the only time they've ever seen me. And I said, I'm letting them down. I just felt miserable.
Things were so bad that the normally confident Ramblers started to believe that winning the game was out of the question.
Cincinnati leading by 15 points. You wouldn't believe it unless you were here.
When we were playing so poorly in the first half, I was thinking to myself, how can we come this far and play this poorly? And so when it got so that it was like we were down 15 points in the second half, and all I was thinking about is, my God, please, let's just do something for 5 minutes. So we look like a team.
Can we get it close? Instead of 15, can we get to 6 or 7? Just get it close. So I was playing to get it close. I didn't think we had a chance.
They did more than just get close. And as they embarked on an amazing comeback, the crowd at Louisville's Freedom Hall, including the fans of the two runners-up, began to embrace the underdog Ramblers.
And the whole joint, the whole Freedom Hall is going nuts. The people from Duke, the Duke band is blaring a Ramblers song.
And then there was Harkness's last-second shot to send the game into overtime.
Win, lose, or draw, this is a great one.
The extra period was a seesaw battle. With the score tied at 58, little John Egan found himself at center court, set for a crucial jump ball.
Well, I knew that it was the biggest jump ball of my life, and because, of course, they were going to hold the ball if they got the tip.
Now, here's how cool Egan is. Egan is about 5'9", and even then, he was built kind of like a Christmas tree, let's say. So as they go up for the jump ball, and Egan can't jump maybe higher than the Sunday Tribune, and he's outsized by this guy. But as they go up, he throws a hip into this guy. He bounces him with his can, knocks him off stride, gets the rebound. Now there's seconds to go, and everybody knows what happened then.
Loyola held the ball, hoping that a final shot would bring them a championship. Everyone believed that shot would come from the All-American, Jerry Harkness.
15 seconds, out to Egan. I guarantee you one thing, they'll give it to Harkness when it's time.
The ball eventually went to Harkness, who was going to go up for a shot and was defended.
Harkness has got it, here he goes, he jumps.
And I go up, and I could still feel, he tips the ball a little bit. I could still feel it. I didn't feel right. I want to shoot, but I really didn't feel it. He tipped it, and I just didn't feel something. My concentration was lost a little bit. And then in my corner of my eye, I see Hunter, and I flip it to Hunter.
He passes out to Hunter. Hunter shoots.
I hurriedly put up a jump shot, trying to, if we did miss, we had time to tip it in. And I thought it was going in, and I saw Vic position himself in front and tipped it in. Perfect timing.
Yeah, off the rim. Rouse gets it, scores. It's over. It's over. We won. We won. We won. We won the ball game. We won the ball game. Oh, we won. Loyola won the ball game.
45 minutes of basketball transformed into a lifetime of memories.
60-58. We won the ball game.
At that particular time in history, you were part of something that was #1 for that level in the world.
Oh, there you have it.
I don't think that these people would remember us as individuals if we finish second. Winning first makes a whole bunch of difference.
And today, Jerry Harkness, who owns a shoe store in Indianapolis, finds the Mississippi State game to be as meaningful as the championship itself.
2 or 3 years ago when Mississippi State came to the Final Four in Indianapolis, I'm in my store downtown and older people from Mississippi come in. And I told them who I am. We're in tears, we're embracing each other. Here we are, Mississippi State people coming, white people, and us, we're embracing over what happened 30-some years ago, 40 years ago. You don't forget that. You don't forget that feeling inside.
Now again, we first brought you that story on the 40th anniversary of that championship some 18 years ago. Leslie Hunter, who you saw in that story, died last year. Sports writer Bill Jouse died in 2012. Now that Loyola team remains the only one from the state of Illinois ever to win an NCAA basketball title. Up next, rare photos of Dr. King featured in a new exhibit in Elmhurst. Now today marks the 53rd anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. To honor the late civil rights leader, we thought we'd give you a look inside a new exhibit at the Elmhurst Art Museum that features rare color photos of Dr. King during the Chicago Freedom Movement. The exhibit uses that photography to explore Chicago's fair housing history. These rare color images of Dr. King mark his time in Chicago in the 1960s. They were captured by Wheaton-based photographer Bernard Klania.
They say that a photograph is worth 1,000 words. I think that's true.
Klania's work in civil rights began during his time as a priest when he responded to Dr. King's call for clergy in Selma, Alabama. He then went on to capture Dr. King during the Chicago Freedom Movement, a protest against discriminatory housing practices. Those images are now on display at the Elmhurst Art Museum's new exhibit, In Focus.
I was surprised and even shocked at the violent response to Dr. King. In my naivete, I never realized that there'd be so much anger against him for doing what's right. So I was able to document that, and at times I was in the demonstrations, at times I was photographing, and in both cases I realized how divided we are and were in Chicago and in the nation.
From redlining to blockbusting to white flight, the exhibit also features statistics that highlight the areas most impacted by these discriminatory housing practices.
I would like to say that everything has changed, but everything has not changed. There's still discrimination in housing. There's still segregation. Because of that discrimination, a vast difference in the wealth of people of color as opposed to white Americans. And that means that they have less to leave to their children.
The exhibit also explores the current and future state of fair housing, as depicted in images by photographer Vashon Jordan Jr.
Every race is separated by their own neighborhoods, but for the protest, people were coming from south to north, east to west. Everyone was coming together to fight for this. I think people understood if the protest started off peacefully and was derailed by outside agitators, they always came with that idea of peace and unity. When we look back at what Dr. King's messaging was, he wanted people to stay peaceful and get their message across without violence.
One of the exhibition's many takeaways is that fair housing is not just a city issue. It affects suburban communities as well.
We're hoping that people will understand is the depth of this issue everywhere. We're hoping that soul-stirring photographs of these photographers will carry some of those messages, and we can realize things like, you know, the color in the vivid color of the Bernie Kleina's photographs from the 1960s really helps transport us to that period, and we realize it happened not so long ago.
When people see what's going on, they're more responsive. They understand immediately the hurt, the danger that has been imposed on so many people, young people, old people. So I encourage people to keep their cameras in their hands and not in their pockets.
In focus, the Chicago Freedom Movement and the fight for fair housing is at the Elmhurst Art Museum until June 20th. And that's our show for this Sunday night. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And join Paris Schutz and Brandis Friedman tomorrow at 7 on Chicago Tonight. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Angel Ito. Thank you for sharing a part of your weekend with us. Happy Easter, stay safe and healthy. Good night.
Closed captioning for this program is brought to you by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.